This question is from a dad friend of mine. He wants to know, how can you encourage your kids to get moving, get out of the house when they don't want to go? Should you just pick them up and put them in the car?
So the proverbial transition, how do we get out of the house in the morning? How do we get anywhere on time? Such a dilemma.
Yes.
And I think it's useful, I always like to take a step back and think about, what is the child's perspective on the situation? How's the child understanding what's happening? And often the child has their own unique perspective, their own unique idea. And one of the things we know about young children is that they don't think of time in the same way that we think of time. I'm sitting here, but I know that after we finish talking, I'm going to walk out the front door, my car is there, I'm going to drive home. I know how to do this because I can anticipate what's going to happen.
Right.
Children don't necessarily anticipate what's going to happen next in a transition, so they are deeply engrossed in the moment, in what they're doing, and they're not thinking, if I stay engrossed in this moment and I don't get to the breakfast table, I'm going to be hungry. Or if I stay engrossed in this and don't get to school, I'm never going to be able to be with my friends. They're sort of engrossed in the moment. And so it's one of the reasons why they gave young children parents, because they can't figure out that timing in those transitions. So just to know that from a child's perspective, changing out of your pajamas into clothes doesn't make sense. Like, I'm wearing something. Why would I have to change? Why would I have to put something else on? Right. Moving from one activity to another doesn't always make sense to children. And so sometimes we get frustrated because we feel like you should be old enough to do this for yourself, but it just doesn't make sense from the child's perspective. And so sometimes, there's all sorts of things people do. They lay out clothes the night before. They put on the child's favorite song and say, okay, this morning I want you to get all of your clothes on by the end of your song. Or and then there's the simple kinds of interactional things, which is, can you get dressed this morning yourself, or shall I help you? And those are what we call closed-ended choices. It's like, it's going to happen, and it could happen this way, or it could happen this way. And I think one of the things that's really useful for parents to know is that when you need to move in and physically help a child accomplish something, you can do that without being punitive, without hurting the child, without shaming the child. You can do that by saying, it looks like this is something you're going to need some help with today. So I'm going to come in and help you get dressed. You want to put your pants on, or shall I put them on for you? And sometimes you need to physically do it, but children get the idea that this is something you're really serious about. There's all sorts of strategies we can use. Some children sleep in their clothes. They get dressed the night before and they sleep in their clothes. So I think it's just kind of being creative, and sometimes it's really allowing enough time. I think the other thing that's confusing is that what your child was capable of doing yesterday, they might not be capable of doing today. So it's kind of frustrating to say, wait a second, you got dressed perfectly when we were going to go to the park, when we were going to go to your friend's house, but now you're acting like you can't get dressed because we're going to school. And so allowing enough time to help your child if they need it is another thing.